Resident Evil Village isn't just your run-of-the-mill horror game. It's a bit more involved. There's hidden treasure, a merchant, hunting, inventory management, and exploration. If you're new to the series or even survival horror in general, then welcome. These tips will help you find your footing rather than trembling around every corner in fear. In this video, I'm going to break it down into 3 sections: combat, exploration, and the Duke, where I'll provide tips and tricks in each category. You can also find timestamps below. Combat. Tip 1. Go for the knees. I know you're going to want to be a hot shot with your headshots, but in Resident Evil, going for the dome isn't always the best option. The game's werewolf-like enemies, Lycans, are unruly, fairly unpredictable dudes that scour the village. They'll go from gaining real quick on you to slowly stalking you as they get closer and closer. But don't be fooled. Aim for the head and they'll duck and juke out of the way, leading to some wasted rounds. It's annoying. Instead, a few shots to the knees will bring them down, allowing for opportune head shooting. The hitbox on their legs is also much more forgiving, making it easier to aim down and fire without getting too precise about it. And all the same principles apply to these cave-dwelling ghoulies sort of dudes. Just keep in mind that there's a variety of enemies in Village, some of which are more spongy, while others wear armor, so this tip isn't universal. However, you'll be fighting Lycans and ghouls the most, so this strategy will be the most exhausted in your encounters. Tip 2. Time your counters. If you block an attack, you have a small window of time to press block again and trigger a counter that'll kick your enemy back, which also disarms them, as well as having a knockback on ones around you. In some cases, when you're surrounded and overwhelmed, deliberately taking the hit, blocking it, and countering it pays off in disarming an enemy and staggering others to go in for that old tip number 1 and pop them in the knees. Tip 3. Sometimes it's okay to run, and no, it does not mean you're a coward.
What's wrong, McFly? Chicken?
The ghoulie dudes in particular are slow and don't prance around like the Lycans, so sometimes it's better to save your resources and simply go around them to get to where you're going. Now, in classic risk-reward fashion, killing them does reward you lei, the in-game currency, so just consider resources and environment before getting into an altercation. And as a bonus tip, it's still okay to run, but set a mine down while you're at it. Bullets and a knife aren't your only answers to a fight. In some scenarios, you will be surrounded on all sides, so turning and running is the only way to make some distance between you and the enemy. And while you're at it, set a mine down if you have one handy, then scurry off. Screw it, throw a pipe bomb at them too. On to exploration. Being thorough is the name of the game here, as it's vital to finding many things, from supplies for crafting, treasure for selling, and ammunition that is pivotal in your survival. And with each area being pretty dense and even maze-like at times, it pays off to take your time to scour high and low. So tip number 1, always check your map before leaving a room. The game has a nifty feature that allows you to indicate whether you've collected everything in a room. When it's blue, that indicates the room is clear and you've collected everything. Otherwise, it'll appear red. If you're having trouble clearing a room, make sure to look up at the ceiling for anything that sparkles. If you see it, shoot it. These are crystals that can be sold to the Duke, the jolly old merchant guy. Some rooms will require a lockpick to complete finishing, or a locked door, but thankfully your map marks them once you find them, so it's easy to go back and clear them out, which is very, very nice. Lastly, keep in mind that there are some areas you won't be able to return to. So again, it pays to be thorough along your journey opposed to your map filled with uncleared rooms, and it's awful. Tip 2, backtrack. It's worth it. While a few areas won't be available later, the actual village is an area you'll be returning to many, many times. The village is a connecting hub between each major area of the game. One way or another, you'll be returning there, and each time you'll return with something that can likely unlock something else. Whether it's a wheel for a well, a lever for a bridge, lockpicks, or, keys. So before trudging into the next new area, make sure to take a moment and circle back around with your newly found items. But like anything else relative to Resident Evil, be wary of the risk-reward, as sometimes being a thorough player will reward you with a big old treasure or a new special gun, but it also likely means you may have to deal with an onslaught of baddies ready to drain you of your resources. Tip 3, go hunting. It definitely doesn't feel great killing pigs and goats just minding their own business in an already dreadful village infested with werewolves running around. But as it turns out, the true enemy is in fact actually Ethan Winters.
Oh my God!
Killing animals and taking their parts to the Duke has some big benefits, like making meals that'll permanently increase health, block resistance, etc. Also, be on the lookout of pictures of special animals hidden around the village. Hunting these things down are needed for creating certain special recipes. And while you're on a killing spree, make sure to shoot the crows too, as they drop extra lay as well. The last section, the Duke. Tip 1. Check that treasure before you sell it. Selling treasure is an important loop of the game, giving you a bump in the funds needed to acquire valuable upgrades, ammunition, and health resources. If you're a Resident Evil 4 veteran, this is a near copy and paste version of how that one worked. But before you sell something, make sure it isn't combinable with another piece of treasure. This is thankfully indicated in its description listed next to its value. Finding the piece of treasure it combines with greatly increases its value, so consider holding off until you find its combinable part. Tip number 2, sell your guns. As the game progresses, you'll naturally find better versions of your arsenal along the way. While you may have grown a sentimental attachment to your starting pistol and have upgraded it all the way, it takes up inventory space, and as the game goes on, that space will become more and more scarce. So just sell it, and use that lay to upgrade your new gun. And while you're at it, just sell the ammo for weapons you don't use as often, and use that money to replenish the weapons you use a lot. Keep in mind that the Duke's inventory is also limited, but it does replenish with every new area. So here are the big takeaways. Go for the knees, be thorough, and crows carry plenty of pocket change. Be sure to check out all of our other Resident Evil coverage, including our review, and a detailed timeline on the entire franchise, which is quite a wild watch, so links in the description below. This was Kurt, thanks for watching, and happy surviving.